It is not that hard to find great businesses and compounders. And there's a hack you can do to get there. I'm going to give you the hack so you can go straight to the promised land.
Hi everyone, JJ here with The Art of Value. Welcome. Well, today we're going to look at Mohnish Pabrai talking about how to find those quality companies that can compound for decades, and I give my thoughts on it. This is from a recent interview he gave with students from Notre Dame University. So let's get straight into it.
Make a list of all the brands that you are a customer of. Okay. So if you eat at McDonald's once in a while, add that to the list. If you go to Chipotle once in a while, add that to the list. If you are buying a certain clothing line, your headphones are a certain brand, you're using certain types of perfume. So look at everything.
Of course, this is something that Peter Lynch has talked about. If you read any of his books, he talks about that. Looking for things in your daily life. A good place to start, I've said before as well, is that on your home screen. If you look at the home screen on your phone, if you look at the apps there or the companies behind them, a lot of them have compounded over time for a long time. You've got Google, you've got in your Apple, maybe you've got an Apple phone. These things in life, starting with the technology, if that's in your circle of competence. I'm using an Apple computer right here now. And even the toothpaste, things that we kind of ignore in daily life. For younger people, not having an advantage being older, actually having an advantage being younger. We can look on TikTok at what's trending on TikTok, for instance, even.
And just make a list, because the thing is that for some company to succeed in getting even a tiny part of your spending is a huge accomplishment, because all of us are very discerning about what we want. We are very particular about, I want to wear certain types of shoes.
I think that's a good point too. The fact that it's hard to get our money, for a business to break through and actually for us to spend $1, we choose to buy a certain phone, we choose to buy a certain thing. In the whole world, the global scheme of things, and some of these are global companies, some of them more local or national, it's just hard to get people's money. Capitalism has such strong competition. For us paying for things is a strong sign that maybe that company might have a moat.
I want to, buy certain kinds of furniture or buy certain appliances. I'm buying a Samsung phone or an iPhone or whatever. So just make a list of everything you are consuming and then start saying, okay, which of these are listed public companies, right? And now let's understand why. Ask yourself, why did I go to McDonald's? Okay. Why didn't I go to, Carl's Jr. or some other brand, like Whataburger or whatever? And then, let's probe into McDonald's and see what kind of business it is. Is it undervalued? Because if you're a consumer of the business, you already know a lot about it.
And talking about McDonald's, bringing that example, of course, Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway owned McDonald's stock. So as he's saying, why am I going to McDonald's? So if you look at it through the lens, if you look at your daily life through the lens of why am I consuming this product? Why am I buying this product? And we do have to buy certain things all the time.
You don't even need to get to the balance sheets and all that right now. Just basically in your head, what you would ask is, where is this business going? Is it really going to explode? There's a new brand of sneakers On. I saw people wearing On sneakers. I'm not lucky enough to have On sneakers yet, but I read an article that it was really exploding in kind of sales. And
he saw it exploding in sales. Younger people in particular who probably don't invest so much, if it's exploding on TikTok, you can see these trends exploding in social media these days. There are certain investors who just invest based on that. You might be aware of the Dumb Money people, the three guys. Chris Carrillo, his name is. He just does it on social arb investing. He doesn't even really care what the fundamentals of the company are, kind of trading, but goes on social media, what's trending right now, and then will that flow through to the sales of the company, just looking at that. So there are many different ways to invest. But this is what he's talking about, a trend in sales. If there's a massive trend in sales, that's going to flow through to the company.
so I would just be curious to understand what is going on, right? And what kind of business is it, and why would it be sustainable or not sustainable, and so on.
So that's a good point. Being sustainable or not. You can have these trends, these fads that don't last, but is it sustainable? What's the competition? Are they sort of neck and neck with a competitor, or have they got some kind of moat?
If you take that approach, and Peter Lynch was a big advocate of this approach, it's going to get you relatively close.
Now, if you're getting value out of this episode so far and you're watching on YouTube or X or Rumble, I really appreciate it if you hit that like button to help the algorithms to spread it to more people. Thanks.
And especially what you'll find is sometimes you latch on to brands that are just emerging before they've really, like college students were the very first demographic to get rid of landline. Some of you don't know what I mean by landline. That's okay. When people started disconnecting landlines, the very first demographic that did that was college students. So college students were able to see that landlines are going away. They were probably also the first to disconnect from cable or from satellite TV. So when the behavior patterns are changing, you sign on to some streaming platform for some content, chances are you guys may be ahead of the curve versus the rest of the crew.
Yeah, it's another good point. This streaming, all these streaming services, younger people were first to use those, to latch onto those. And, as I said on the home screen, on my home screen is Spotify. They're doing pretty well. And, it's these apps that we use all the time, more and more. We have to also look at the economics of the company. There's a lot of competition. Spotify is up against those big mega cap companies as well. So there's that to think about. The streaming services, the streaming wars, how much competition's in this space. It's not just that we use it all the time. If there's intense competition there, that's different. He doesn't really talk about this here because that would be a bigger conversation, but those competitive dynamics are important too. If there's too much competition and there's no moat, then it's not going to be a quality compounder over the decades.
When Facebook first started, it was only for a few colleges, right? Only it first started at Harvard and then expanded from there.
I'm sure many of us have seen The Social Network, the movie, how Zuckerberg was at Harvard and the dorms there, started, tinkering around with things, and then it started from there. And Peter Thiel has talked about this too, about trying to have a monopoly in certain markets. So Facebook started at just one university in one dorm, really, and then it went out from there to another university and to another university. So they had dominated that market, and then it started to go wider. The university students, as Mohnish is saying here, would be the first to know about that, to know that it was a massive trend happening.
Those individuals who were early customers of Facebook or consumers of Facebook has a huge advantage because the rest of the world didn't even know what Facebook. They never used it. So you're actually at a huge advantage to Warren in Omaha. Massive advantage because he's not changing anything about what he's doing, whereas you guys are actually driving change.
Indeed. So talking about Warren Buffett there, one interesting thing is he invested in Apple, but he didn't even really know how to use an iPhone. He's got one. He doesn't really use it for email or anything. He talks about using it just as a phone sometimes. I guess when he's not in the office, but he still understands the company. He talked about it being an electronics company, consumer electronics company, hardware, and he does understand that. But of course, Apple's got this big software component as well, locked into the ecosystem and so forth. But Buffett does understand Apple, even though he's older, but he wasn't in it early. He watched it happen, but, I remember I got the first iPhone, it first came out, and people were camping outside the shops to get one of those, camping overnight. I remember videoing it on my Nokia N95 camera phone at the time, sort of talking to people, interviewing people outside Apple store. That was a sign that people were really enthusiastic, really keen to get their hands on it, and it sold like hotcakes. And the rest is history.
So very easy to find a compounder. I gave you the formula.
Now, if you'd like to show your support for the Art of Value, you can now go here to buy me a coffee, just a one-off small donation. And super thanks is also now activated on YouTube. I really appreciate that kind of support. Thanks.
In investing, it's always good to have a Swiss Army knife approach to investing, where you can maintain flexibility. Finding great compounders at compelling prices doesn't happen that often. This year when Buffett's letter came out, he talked about the fact that in 58 years of running Berkshire Hathaway, there were 12 decisions that he made that really ended up probably creating 80-90% of the value. And he took hundreds of decisions.
So very few decisions drive most of the returns. We talked about how to look for them, but they don't happen very often. So to be in not a hurry to find these compounders, because there aren't many of them, is to be sure that they are. But everybody makes mistakes. And so even these greatest investors in the world get things wrong. Mohnish has talked about that even the greatest investors, and Peter Lynch has talked about this, if you're getting 60% right, you're doing very well, even compared to the best in the world.
Probably bought more than 300 stocks. And there were really just a few stocks and a few businesses for these 12 great decisions, which led to this tremendous outcome. So he said, like, one good decision every 5 years on average.
One good decision every 5 years. So people trade in and out of stocks all the time. There's really no hurry. Slowing down, looking for these compounders takes time.
So even for a person with the talents of Warren Buffett, finding these great, businesses like a Geico or a Coke or a Amex or Burlington Northern or all of these things that have worked so well, National Indemnity and so on, were rare. They happened relatively infrequently. So I think it's always nice to have more tools in your arsenal.
I'd love to know what you think about this. Do you think Monish's suggestions are good ones for how to go about finding compounders? Do you have any other ones? What do you do to find these companies? Let me know in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to put a link here to what YouTube thinks that you should watch next, so go and see that, and I'll put a related episode in the description as well for everyone else. Thanks for watching or listening, and I'll see you in the next one.